Any health-related information on the following show provides general information only. Content presented on any show by any host or guest should not be substituted for a doctor's advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any new diet, exercise, or treatment program.
Welcome to Accelerated Health with Sara Banta. I'm a busy wife, mom of 3, and an NANP certified supplement professional, but that's not all. I'm also the founder of the multi-award-winning Accelerated Health Products, a brand offering innovative natural supplements that are scalar enhanced to optimize your health. And this podcast is not just a source of information. It's a community. We're all here to learn and grow in our health journeys, and this is the springboard to learning. And the free group coaching on Telegram is where we continue together. You can ask questions. I post tips and tools every day to deepen your health and to keep you motivated to moving forward. So here's what you can expect. New episodes every Monday and Wednesday with in-depth health discussions and expert guests, and hot topics in the news every Friday to keep things interesting. And then, of course, followed with the free health group coaching on Telegram. The details are on my website at sarabantahealth.com. Have you thought about detoxing? I know it's a little scary. You think about those detox flu symptoms. Well, I've created over 10 unique, easy detox cleanses to help reset your body while feeling great. Day one, you can go from just the colon cleanse to get you pooping to the full overhaul that includes the liver cleanse and the liver flush and resetting the metabolism, your hormones, and all of it. And you can go to my website and take the detox quiz to find what's right for you. And if you're not ready for a detox, but you want to start with some supplements, just complete the health goals form on my website, and I will put together personally a protocol just for you. But just by taking a few steps forward, you truly are going to change your life, and I'm here to help you every step of the way. I am so excited. Today we have Dr. Carrie Jones on. She's an internationally recognized speaker, consultant, and author and educator on the topic of women's health and hormones with over 20 years in the industry. And this is a topic close to my heart. I'm 48. I'm feeling it. And most of you, I would say 70% of you, are women in the perimenopausal to menopausal ages. And so this is a topic that you are wanting to dive into. We're going to understand each stage of perimenopause. What are hormones going on? You know, Carrie, welcome.
Thank you.
As I'm like rambling on, I was thinking to myself in the car this morning how my husband said to me the other day, wow, you're kind of snapping at me. Like, what's going on? And I thought to myself this morning, I'm like, that's my hormones, right?
Yes.
So I just am so grateful for people like you who are diving into the depths of what's really going on, because we're not getting the answers from our doctors. We're being told that these symptoms are inevitable, that we're going to gain weight, that we're going to feel horrible, and that's just life. And here's an antidepressant. Or, you know, that's, you're supposed to gain weight and you're supposed to feel awful. And welcome to menopause. So first, before we get into the depths of all of this, can you tell people about your journey and what has made you so passionate about this topic?
I jumped both feet into hormones in medical school. So I started medical school in 2001, which is around the time of the Women's Health Initiative. That whole study that came out made all the top magazines that said hormones cause cancer. And both my attending physician, who I worked with all through medical school and then did a residency with, looked at each other and went, really? Estrogen? Like the hormone we have in our body is single-handedly causing cancer? So I thought, I don't know very much about my hormones, but I don't think this one hormone is the sole cause behind all of this drama. And I grew up in the South, so my health class was taught by the high school football coach, so you can imagine how that went, and never looked back from hormones. Once I realized how much I didn't know, once I realized how much my friends didn't know, my family didn't know, I went right into women's health and hormones study. And in a full career, I saw patients for 15 years. I was the medical director of a large integrative hormone lab. And I've been educating and writing about hormones this whole time because women are told exactly what you said. Just expect it. It's common. It's normal. Good luck. Well, your grandmother did it. Your mom did it. You'll be fine. And the truth of the matter is it's not fine. And we're not fine. We don't feel fine. And we're changing that narrative.
I love it because I feel like we can have a better second half of our life than the first because we're wiser, we're educated, and we can go against the genetics. We can go against the natural progression of what the doctors are telling us. I mean, I'm 48. I actually have better energy than I did when I was in college at Stanford. I have more energy. My gut's better. My hair's better. My skin's better. Things that should be a lot worse are better. And it's taking control back also. And that's what I love about education and diving into this, to give the listeners the power back to take over their bodies again and not just to be succumbing to what their doctor says.
And when you think about perimenopause and this whole transition, I often have called it for years a second puberty. So we're that much wiser. We all remember puberty. We went through it ourselves. And if we have kids, you've gone through it with your kids more than likely. And so now to go through it in reverse, because we're coming out of all the hormone changes, we're that much better equipped and we're that much stronger. And well, absolutely, you may have a lot of symptoms. Just by understanding, just by taking what you just said, we're taking our power back, we're getting educated, we're making better choices, is the key to this 100%.
Exactly. So perimenopause.
Yeah.
I'm laughing because I have an older sister and she's been like clockwork all of her life with her periods. When she decided she wanted to get pregnant, she said, you know what, I want a baby that's born in April. And her baby was born April 15th. I mean, that was her, right? So she had it all just in line. And about a year ago, she said, Sarah, what's going on? I'm waking up in these sweats.
Yeah.
And I started laughing and I said, oh, it's menopause.
Yes.
She really had no clue. She's not one to go to the doctor even to even get the doctor's answer as to what's going on. But it's, what is perimenopause? What is menopause? Let's go through the details.
I find a lot of women didn't know anything about perimenopause. And I'm so glad this is changing, because what happens is we say, oh my gosh, I'm more tired. I'm more snappy towards my kids or my partner. I can't sleep. I'm having these joint pains. I'm having, it's pain with sex. And it gets blown off of, well, you've been really stressed lately, or you've been traveling a lot lately, or that's what happens when you're a mom of 3 kids and super busy. And while there's a piece of truth to that, at the same time, our hormones are shifting. So perimenopause is this transitional state that happens on average for 6 to 10 years as we are moving out of our reproductive years, our reproductive decades, towards our postmenopausal decades. And in this transition, it is literally a transition, as somebody described to me. It's like living through a house remodel. So it's going to be great out the other end. But if anyone has lived through any part of a house remodel, either a full house remodel or a bathroom remodel or a kitchen remodel, it's a giant pain. It can be a giant pain. And that's how it can feel. Initially, cycles start to shift. Hormones such as progesterone, such as our estrogens, start to shift. And since we're so reactive to these hormones, they are integral to who we are as women, we feel that shift and it manifests as symptoms. Now, eventually we'll start skipping periods. Eventually we'll go 12 full months without any period whatsoever. Once you've gone 12 months, on the 12th month, I feel like we should get a crown or a watch, but you're considered menopausal, right? Like, congratulations, you've crossed the threshold. On the 13th month, you're considered postmenopausal, which means you shouldn't get a period again by act of your ovaries. Now, I understand there are a lot of women who go through early, we have early menopause, maybe they're younger than 45. We have women who had surgery, so maybe they don't have a uterus and they're like, oh my gosh, I don't bleed, how do I know? You will still go through these transitions if you have your ovaries. And so it just may be a little tougher to figure out based on the whole period aspect of it. We need to update the whole definition as it relates only to your menstrual cycle, because we know these hormones literally impact all 12 systems of your body. These hormones play just a bigger role in your uterus as it does in your brain, in your bones, in your skin, your eyes, like all these places we didn't think of, your GI tract, your gut. And so by understanding just this transitional period, perimenopause, it helps the light bulb comes on for a lot of women where they go, oh, I'm not crazy. I'm like, no, you're not crazy. You're having all these hormonal shifts as the body is gearing down in that one area to get you to the other side post-menopause.
And I loved what you said, that it's the exact opposite of puberty, because watching my girls go through puberty and their menstrual cycles starting up, it's not like clockwork right off the bat when they start, and their hormones are oh my gosh. If you, like my husband and my son were like, get me out of this house. What is going on with my monster sisters or daughters? And I just knew what to do and to stand back, right? But they could be the most lovely daughters in the world, and then your worst enemy. And they're good people. They're just, these hormones can take over.
Yes.
But when you don't understand that, they take over and even more. But like myself saying, oh, wait, that's my hormones making me snap. I'm going to actually be more in control of it because I understand, well, maybe I'm overreacting. So I love that you talk about that it's the reversal, and it makes sense.
Yeah. Because
your body's unwinding something. And something you mentioned was stress. And when I think of stress, I do think about exercise too. And this, as exercise, is just an example where when you're young, you can get away with working out for 2 hours.
Yeah.
You've got your adrenals doing their job and your ovaries doing their job. But then when your ovaries are dying, your adrenals start to take over. So we're becoming more stressed, burned out at the same time. And then when you're burned out, the same stressor seems a lot bigger.
Yes.
So, right? So that perceived stress. So can you go into what is going on there with the fact that, yes, us women have 1,000 things on our plate and we multitask, and we've got our kids and our husbands and our elderly parents that are needing our attention too, and then taking care of ourselves and seeing the weight gain, seeing the hair fall out, seeing our mind, where did I park my car? That's all really stressful, but then the perceived stress of it is increased as well. So what is going on there?
It's interesting. I was reading an article yesterday about our brain, and we have a neurotransmitter in our brain. So a hormone in our brain, it's called GABA, GABA. And it is our main, what's called an inhibitory hormone. It calms us down. It puts the brake system to what's going on in our brain. Now we need a gas system because we need to learn, we need to remember, we need to deal, we need to handle, but at the same time, we need to brake to counter that. So I'm reading this article, and it's talking about GABA and how as women transition into menopause, they lose on some of the stimulation to their brake system. So one of our big hormones in our body is called progesterone. And when progesterone breaks down, one of its big breakdown products goes up to the brain and nudges GABA. It says, okay, go be a brake system. Go calm her down. Go help her sleep. Go help her not snap. Go help her have patience. That's what GABA does. But if we go through perimenopause and we don't make as much progesterone as we used to, which is very common, we start losing that ability, then all of a sudden we lose out on the ability of a very strong brake system. And women often say this. They often say, oh my gosh, I have no patience anymore. I am really snappy. I don't handle stress like I used to. Everything is a mountain when in fact it probably should just be a molehill. All right. And so we get this, we get frustrated because we're constantly comparing ourselves to the younger version of us. The old me used to handle this. The old me could have 14 balls in the air. The old me didn't forget things. The old me wouldn't have gotten stressed out like that. The old me wouldn't have reacted like that. And it's acknowledging, yes, and you're making this transition. So it's not fair to compare you to the old you. You're a new you. Like we're moving through like a caterpillar to a butterfly. And so by knowing that this hormone, this like one example of how our perceived stress can go way, way up, can at least help us remember, like once we know as women, like the who, the what, the where, the when, the why, how, it's easier for us. So when we do overreact or stress does happen, we're like, oh, right. Oh, that's right. Sarah and Carrie were talking about the brake system, and I've lost the brake. I have no brake on my mouth. I have no brake on my brain. I have no brake on everything. Like, okay, this makes sense now. Now, obviously, there are things we can do to support this, but this article just full on said, yeah, perimenopausal, menopausal women, this is you. You're losing your brake system. And I thought, yes, women can relate.
Well, think about your elderly parents. I actually was joking to my mother-in-law. Thank God I'm very close to her and I can have this conversation with her. I was talking about one of her friends, and I said, yeah, she has no filter. And I said, actually, you don't have a filter anymore either. And she used to be the sweetest lady ever, and she has no filter. My mom has no filter. And it's this, you just let it out.
Yeah.
And hopefully, at least you're going to know where they stand, what their opinion is. And I always tell my kids, I said, please don't let me do that. But it makes sense because, we do have all of this on our plate. And then we try to overcompensate for, the stress, because like exercise is a great stress reliever and has been for so many women, right? So and not just for stress, but oh, now I'm starting to gain weight. What should I do? I'm going to control my food. I'm going to shrink it down. I'm going to work out more. Okay, why is the tire around my belly getting bigger? It should be getting smaller. What's going on there?
Oh my gosh, the stress. And going back to the perceived stress, we have this little area of our brain called an amygdala, which I actually think is really fun to say, amygdala. But the amygdala is think of it like a command center that can determine, it's a fear-based command center. So when you're feeling stressed out, when you're feeling overwhelmed, when you're feeling guilt or shame or fear, this command center gets activated. And because we have now 40, 50, 60 years of experience with this command center, coupled with less of a break, it can kick off faster than it did maybe in your 30s or even in your 20s. And so what it does is it runs to your adrenal glands, which sit above your kidneys, and kicks off the stress system. So not only do we not have this brake system, but we have this command center that's trigger happy. That's like fear, 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 stress, 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 stress. And whereas before like I said, we could handle it, and now we can't. So as you said, we go to compensate. Okay, I'm going to control more. I'm going to control the portion of my food. I'm going to exercise more and figure this out. Well, now the body just gets the reinforcement of, oh no, now we're shrinking on food. There go my nutrients. And now we're running, or we're treadmilling, we're ellipticaling, we're doing the hours of hot yoga or the Peloton bike or lifting or whatever it is, which just becomes more of a stress. So like think of your stress availability to handle stress like a bucket. And instead of draining away from the bucket, we're just adding more intensity to the bucket. So instead of going for an easy yoga flow or an easy walk or cutting back, but adding more nutrients, instead the body's like, oh my gosh, this feels stressful. So it's going to perpetuate this cycle. Now, cortisol itself can cause blood sugar issues, glucose issues, insulin issues, inflammation issues. And it's helpful to a point. I need cortisol. I want to be able to deal in a stressful situation or avoid a car accident or, handle an angry email, but I don't want it chronic. I don't want it all the time. And when it's all the time, our fat cells see that, and our fat cells can then get bigger. We can get more cortisol right then and there in our fat cells, which then of course only accentuates the glucose and accentuates the insulin issues. And now we have the spare tire in that area, as opposed to losing the spare tire, which was probably our original goal.
Exactly. I think about when I used to do hot yoga strength classes, there was this group of women that would come straight from Orange Theory to the class.
Yeah.
And were they physically fit and amazing? Was that the person that I was looking to, like, I want that body? No, they had the tire.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually just talking to one of my best friends who's starting to eat more and losing weight.
Mm-hmm.
And she was talking about someone else who's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But she goes, Sarah, I was with her for a week and she doesn't eat. And, the body's talking to itself and it's in survival mode. And if you're in survival mode and your bank account has $20, how much money are you going to spend? Right? It's the same thing. And there's this body talk, and it is so much smarter than you are. You can't override it, right? And I'll just mention this. I have talked a little bit about my liver issues on my podcast. I had a viral issue. My enzymes were through the roof. My iron was through the roof. Ferritin was high. I used to tend towards anemia. And here all of a sudden now I have this going on. Well, why? Because my liver's not working, right? Okay, so my cortisol was high. I don't eat a lot of sugar. My blood sugar was high. My A1C is higher. So if your liver's backed up and stressed, the cortisol is going to go up. Even if it's a physical stressor versus just I'm stressed mentally over what's going on in my life. Your body doesn't know the difference. It also doesn't know if you really are running from a tiger or if you just got in a fight with your husband. So it doesn't know. It's going to react the same way, and it's going to shut things down, and your hormones are also going to get out of whack, and they're going to suffer as well.
Right.
So with all that being said, women out there, you want to make sure you're doing the lifestyle things to manage your stress, the meditation, the gratitude, the saunas, whatever that means to you, the walking your dog. I always walk my dog at night and I literally feel my whole day go, and I actually sleep so much better. And sleep is a huge issue. You talked a bit about going through the stage, regardless if you're cycling or not, to know if you're there or not. And, whether someone has had surgery, a hysterectomy, or maybe their cycle, they just haven't had a cycle in years. How do they know that they're in stage 1? And let's go through stage 1 versus all the different stages of perimenopause. What are the other signs besides the cycle?
So the classic guideline definition of stage 1 is that your cycle is changed by 7 days or more. And again, I think we need to update these definitions, but this is where we're at. So if you don't have a cycle, maybe you have an IUD, maybe you have the Mirena or a progestin IUD, not the copper, but the progestin IUD often causes women's cycle to go away. That's one of the side effects of it. So maybe an IUD, maybe you've had a hysterectomy. What we take into account are your age, but we can also do a blood test called FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, and we can see what level it's at. If your FSH is still in the single digits, let's say you go get a blood test on Friday and it's 4. Okay, you are still having good communication between the follicle in your ovaries and your brain, which is great. If you're cycling, if you would have had all your pieces and parts, you didn't have an IUD, you'd probably be cycling regularly. Now, as that number gets up into the double digits, all of a sudden you're at 12, then you're at 15, then you hit 20. Once you get up into the 20-25 range, that's when we start to think, oop, you are definitely either later stage perimenopause or post-menopause. Definitely by the time you hit 40 on that blood test, everyone considers you postmenopausal. Like the ovaries, the follicles, the release of the egg, like that is absolutely just not happening anymore. Now, let's pretend you're listening to this thinking, all right, well, I would love to get a blood test, but I don't know that I can get into my doctor's right away or how I could get that. Are there any symptoms? The most common early symptoms of perimenopause are fatigue, mood changes, and sleep issues. Now, we've heard there are over 100 perimenopausal symptoms out there. Everything from hot flashes and night sweats, like we mentioned earlier, to the insomnia, to the vaginal symptoms, to the musculoskeletal symptoms, to the weird symptoms like itchy ears out of nowhere, or phantom smells, or increased headaches. I mean, women can really, unfortunately, go through the gamut, like I said, these changes in hormones affect all systems in the body, not just the uterus or the ovaries. So, but those are the three kind of early symptoms I see over and over and over. And women tend to tell me, I'm way more tired. I'm having way more mood changes, whether it's angry, irritated, more depressed, more anxious, or some combination. And sleep. Carrie, I used to be a great sleeper, and now I can't fall asleep or I can't stay asleep. All of a sudden, I wake up at 3 a.m. like clockwork. I wake up at 4 a.m. like clockwork. What is going on? So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, holy Moses, that's me, you are likely, for sure, depending on your age, perimenopausal.
Well, you just said you're not sleeping, you're tired, maybe headaches. Okay, the normal woman would say, I can't sleep, I don't know why. And of course I'm tired because I'm not sleeping.
Right.
And I have headaches because I'm not sleeping. So they will just blame it on the sleep factor and not look at all of them together as, oh, well, maybe something bigger is going on here, right?
Yes, this is why in love them or hate them, some of these online quizzes or online checklists for symptoms can be so helpful because it takes you back, it magnifies out as opposed to in. Right now you can see the whole forest, not just one tree. So you can do a perimenopausal symptom checklist, and if you find your check and all the things, then it's perimenopause. At least that's contributing to these, as opposed to, oh, that's what happens at that age, that's what happens when you have 3 kids, that's what happens when you're running a business. Yes, and it's also what happens when your hormones start changing because you're reversing out of puberty.
So we talked about cortisol and stress. Would you actually see the same woman with the same stressors have a rise in cortisol during this time?
It depends on the woman and how long her stress has been going on. I was, as I said, the medical director of an integrative hormone lab for a decade, almost a decade. And if she came into perimenopause with a lot of stress, oftentimes we'd see her cortisol low. There was what's called a negative feedback loop that kicks in. You had high cortisol for a long time, and then the brain goes, enough is enough. I'm done with this. This is annoying and irritating. Let's shut it down. And gradually the cortisol will start to fall down, down, down. So now she enters into perimenopause absolutely exhausted, not only because of the hormone changes, but because her what's called an HPA, hypothalamic pituitary adrenal, so brain adrenal axis, is just not doing what it's supposed to do. It's like struggling. Now on the flip side, let's say somebody comes into perimenopause and because of these hormone changes, her stress perception goes up, her actual stress goes up. The hormones are changing and now she has high cortisol. So she does a test and finds out actually her cortisol is high. So the way she goes into perimenopause plays a big role. I have seen over the many years on stress response and cortisol. We talk all the time about preconception, pre-fertility work. If you're going to get pregnant, everyone's like, okay, I want to get pregnant. I'm going to go in a prenatal. I'm going to stop alcohol. I'm going to work on my health, right? And then they work to get pregnant. We need to be doing the same thing to women going into perimenopause to make it easier for them, make it a much better transition. In the end, ultimately, what I'm trying to do is get you to thrive. I don't want you to develop chronic disease. I don't want you to develop osteoporosis. I don't want you to develop dementia. I don't want you to develop diabetes. So it's these big players that don't get talked about a lot. Everyone's so focused on, I can't sleep, I have hot flashes, sex hurts, and that's valid. And I need you to thrive for the rest of your life.
So what are those things that women listening that have not entered this perimenopausal state, what should they be doing? You know, I know lots of women in my town, especially, you know, drinking, they're going to the Orange Theory and doing another exercise, not eating all day, but then having 3 to 4 glasses of wine at night. And then all of a sudden they're like, I can't drink anymore. But
Yes.
that's your body saying no. But what are the things that we should be doing before we even get to that stage?
Alcohol is a great one since you brought it up. When I was in practice, I had so many women that were older than me say, you just wait. You just wait. You won't be able to have that 1 glass of wine, 2 glasses of wine. All of a sudden your liver is going to say no. Like the enzymes that break down alcohol seem to really change for the negative as we go through perimenopause. Now, some women might argue, no, I have a glass of wine. It helps me feel less stressed and it helps me sleep. And I'm like, oh, I would argue if you were wearing a wearable, so an Apple Watch or an Oura Ring or a Whoop band or something, it would actually tell you your sleep is not that great. It may help you fall asleep because you're calm or whatever, the alcohol, but I can tell over and over and over that women really struggle. Plus it adds to their hot flashes and night sweats with alcohol. So really evaluating alcohol, is it worth it? Do you need that one glass? Do you need those 2 glasses? Can you cut back on the number of nights? Maybe cut it out completely for a while and see how you feel. I've had so many women just completely get so mad at me, and then they'll say, fine, I will cut it out for a full month and see how I feel. And every single one of them comes back and says, oh, I feel better. I'm like, I know.
Well, before you go on to the other things that we should change besides alcohol, I've written an article. I've also done a podcast on alcohol. Alcohol makes you more stressed when you're not drinking. So just by having 1 to 2 drinks a week, your stress level when you're not drinking increases. Your impulsivity, it gets worse when you're not drinking, not just if you're an angry drunk, but even when you're sober. Your sleep is worse. It was funny. I was at a yoga class the other day, and this girl's like, oh, I just started wearing my Oura Ring, and it was really weird. My sleep score wasn't very good. It might have had something to do with the fact that I went out last night and had some drinks. And I'm just laughing because, yes, it's exactly what you're talking about. It's the quality of the sleep. It's not just what you think you're getting. But alcohol, don't shoot the messenger. It is a poison. Your body doesn't have a way to store it. It needs to get rid of it. It's going to shut down your fat burning. It's going to increase your bad estrogens in your body in 3 different ways. I go through all of that in the article if you're interested. So before we moved on, I just wanted to emphasize that, because it's not just a little vice. It's actually something that is really impacting your overall health, especially during this stage.
I had a good friend of mine. She was in her late 40s, and she said, I keep getting ridiculous breast pain. Carrie, I'm having all this breast pain. What do you think? We combed through everything, and it turned out she was having 1 or 2 glasses of wine once a week. 1 or 2 glasses. She said, I'm going to cut out these 1 or 2 glasses and see what happens. And her breast pain completely went away. Just 1 or 2 glasses a week, not a day,
right.
Not every couple of days, but like once on Friday. And she said, just that alone, my breast pain went away. I had no idea it could be that powerful at this age, because she hadn't had it before, but she was in a different part of her perimenopausal journey at that time. And I was like, I know it's tough. As you said, don't shoot the messenger for those who do drink and think, but I love wine. I know, I love wine too. It does not love me. So
yeah,
it's unfortunate.
And you'll be shocked at how motivated you are to not drink when you come out the other side and you realize how good you feel when you're not, and you get your energy back. And I'm not someone that never drinks. I'll sometimes order a drink. I'll take 2 sips and go, you know what? It's not worth it to me, because it's not giving me what I'm hoping it's going to give me. And I want to wake up tomorrow morning and feel great and sleep well. And so anyway, what are the other things that we should be doing?
One of my favorite things is to couple of things. This one's free, cheap, and easy. Circadian rhythm retraining, which a lot of us struggle with. What does that mean? Our circadian rhythm is when our cortisol goes up in the morning naturally, like the sun, and then it should go down at night when the moon comes out, and a different hormone will come out called melatonin. So cortisol should be like the sun and melatonin should be like the moon, but this can get all screwed up as we go through perimenopause, especially because we've been relying on our youth for all those years to feel so good, and now it's sort of hitting us like a big bus. So I tell people, I know sleep is an issue, but I need you to do all that you can to get your sleep now as you prep to go into perimenopause, or if you are perimenopausal. I need you to be like a child. I need you to go to bed earlier than you think, right? I need you to wind down. That's wind with a D, not E. So, right? So off your electronics, read a real book, take a bath, drink sleepy time tea or chamomile tea, whatever tea you drink. Have some sort of ritual about 30 to 60 minutes before you go to bed that's not very stimulating, because that get your body temperature, the darkness ready for bed for melatonin to come out. You want to sleep in complete darkness, and you want to evaluate, are you snoring? Do you have sleep apnea? Because if you, and this increases as women get older, as women lose their estrogen in particular, our facial structure can change, including back in our palate, back in our mouth, which can increase our risk for things like sleep apnea. And our sleep apnea as women is different than men's. Men, you know, immediately he's snoring like a trucker, you know, sawing a log, he's struggling to breathe. Like, oh my gosh, he's sleep apnea, he snores so bad. Women, it's usually a lot softer, not as noticeable. And especially if your partner is a loud snorer, they're not paying attention to you. They don't know if you're softer and more gentle in what you're doing. So I've had several sleep study expert doctors say to me, women in their 40s and 50s, they absolutely hate it, but they should probably get a sleep study. It can make a big difference. So I do want to point that out. So whatever you can do at night for sleep, including supplements. I am a big fan of magnesium glycinate or L-theanine or for phosphatidylserine or herbs, passion flower, skullcap, chamomile, lavender essential oil, whatever you need to get decent sleep. Huge fan of. Start then. And what can getting that habit in, because I know when you're younger, like, oh, I can stay out, I go out, I'm a night owl. It will bite you in the backside as you get older. In the morning, we're going to do the opposite. In the morning, we want that full spectrum light. In the morning, we want some fresh air. In the morning, you want to get up, you want to go outside or open your window or open your door, get some full light exposure. If you're like me, where you live in an area that's kind of dark and rainy in the morning, you may need to invest in what's called a full spectrum light box. You want about 10,000 lux. They cost somewhere between $20 to $50, depending how big and fancy of a contraption you get. Yes, there are a lot more expensive ones on the internet, but as long as you get that 10,000 lux, you set it on your counter while you're making your coffee or your tea, or you're doing your makeup, and just get that exposure along with a little bit of fresh air. Go outside for a little bit, open window for a little bit. Again, we're setting and resetting your circadian rhythm through the day. Humans have lost this ability to a large degree. We're so overstimulated with technology, bright lights, TV, phone, iPads. We're so busy looking down that we forget to look up and get some of that. So just those things alone, again, I'm trying to go for like free, cheap, easy budget, can help immensely. Now, the next thing is that women tend to lose a lot of muscle mass as they make this transition. And while we did say, be careful of the sheer amount of exercise that you're doing, when you're making some changes to your exercise plan, make sure you add in the heavy weightlifting. I know you love cardio. I know the cardio bunnies listening right now were like, no, but I love my runs. I know you do. Except that's not helping you build the lean muscle that you're going to lose, unfortunately, as you get older if you do nothing about it. So 2 to 3 days a week, start building in heavy weightlifting. You need the stimulus of the heavy to build those big muscles, the thighs, the booty. Those muscles are really helpful at reducing your risk for prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. The lower body muscles are very metabolically active in a good way if we maintain them. So while I'm a big fan, of course, lifting for the whole body, the back, your arms, the whole thing, but especially make sure you focus on that low body. Now, how do you get that muscle stimulus? Well, you need protein, and you actually need a lot of protein. And there are memes on the internet that say, I didn't realize when I hit midlife that all my thoughts would be around protein. But it's true. There is an amino acid called leucine, and we need about 2.5 grams of leucine to get the stimulus to make this protein. And again, our whole point is reduce the risk for chronic disease, build muscle so we don't get osteoporosis, osteopenia, support our bones. We don't want to have diabetes. We don't want to have the weight around the middle, the visceral fat, the fat that's inflammatory. So making sure you're getting 30 to 40 grams of protein at about every meal, your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, which I know can be mind-blowing to a lot of women. They're like, that's a lot of protein. I don't even eat breakfast, Carrie.
Well, right. And and that's the second part to the equation is fast, no fast, but go ahead on the muscle.
Well, so do we fast? Now, two of my favorite experts on fasting are Dr. Mindy Pelz and then Cynthia Thurlow. When you're in the wildness of perimenopause, I am not the biggest fan so much of the long fasting. If you want to do 12 or 14 hours of intermittent fasting, fine. But going longer than that, I find a lot of women feel worse. They don't exactly feel better. However, once you are postmenopausal, or if you are cycling regularly and you're at the early, like around your period, and you there want to do longer fasting, you want to go 18 hours, 20 hours, even 24 hours. Once in a while, not a bad thing, helpful for a reset, helpful for your GI tract, helpful for reset for things like blood sugar and insulin. But don't use fasting as a way for, let's say, like weight loss if you're already super stressed, because now you're fasting and the body goes, oh, great. I have no nutrients. I have no food coming in and I'm already stressed out. It's like throws the towel down. It gets mad at you and the symptoms persist. So I'm not against fasting, but I'm for smart fasting. And I follow those two experts.
And I want to just emphasize this because it was really easy for me to fast all day. Like I had no problem. I would work out fasted in the morning, go all day, wait until about 4 o'clock to eat. So easy for me to do. So for me to incorporate an earlier meal in the day, it was like, oh, I don't really want to. But what's so interesting is once I started, I felt my metabolism shoot up. I actually saw my body build muscle, which is very hard to do in this stage of life. Most women are just trying to hold on to what they got. You cannot gain new muscle if you are eating one meal a day or even just squeezing it way later. And I've listened to Dr. Stacy Sims, and it makes sense. You know, your body has gotten a stimulus and it's asking for something in return, right? To not stress it out. And your body's going to respond. It goes back to the bank. If I've put more money in the bank, I get to spend more money. Right? I mean,
Yes.
It's an amazing thing.
Yes.
But if you don't put more money in the bank, your body's going to go, nope, I'm just going to eat away at what I got. And what I got is muscle. So I'm going to eat away at it. And you've got that muscle wasting. Yep. And then when you start eating more, and this goes to the Ozempics of the world, right? Where when things go back to normal or you start eating more, you're going to gain only fat back because it's very difficult to gain that muscle. And I talk to my friends that are in their 30s and I say, hold on to that muscle that you got. It's expensive and don't take it for granted. So, you know, it's a big situation that us women are faced with. I also have another friend that's in her 50s and she is this petite little thing, never really had a weight issue. And she said, Sarah, my doctor says I'm skinny fat. I said, no way. She says, yeah, my fat percentage is at 35 and she looks small, right? So you would never look at her and think, oh, you're obese. But it's because she had no muscle mass. And I said, you've got to lift heavy weights. And she goes, well, I don't understand what that means. And so that's another issue is some women just don't even know what to do. And there's this balance also of I don't want to get injured or I've got a hurt knee. What do I do? Well, what do you do, Carrie?
What do you do? That's the time that you seek help. That's the time that you raise your hand and go, okay, I'm going to hire a trainer. I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to ask for help. And I'm going to go to a gym or ask for a trainer that understands where I'm at. And this, of course, means it's not every trainer. But if you've never done it before, have them show you how to use the machines. If you've never lifted a weight in your whole life, maybe start with YouTube, get comfortable doing some of the movements before going to a gym or hiring a trainer. But because I don't want you to get injured, just like you said as well, but because I want you to start lifting heavy for you and building muscle, you got to ask for help. You have to ask for assistance. I mean, it's just like anything else in life. If you want to learn to do something, you probably go to YouTube first. Then you ask around or you just hire somebody to help you do it and teach you to do it. It's the same with this. It doesn't mean you have to do it forever, but it definitely means in the beginning, if you're brand new to any kind of exercise other than maybe walking or running or the elliptical, ask for help. That's what they're there for.
Yeah. Carrie, I can't believe we're pretty much out of time, but before we go, I just want to just touch on thyroid because I am a huge proponent of restoring your thyroid function naturally if you can. It is the master endocrine gland. It affects your adrenals, it affects your gonads, it affects everything. And so with that being said, what should women be looking for?
When it comes to thyroid, and research shows this, our thyroid can often go haywire when we make this transition because it's a big transition, which means the thyroid can have issues as well. So while I talk about those symptoms, fatigue or cycle changes or hair changes or headaches or what have you, thyroid can overlap that. So we want to make sure you get tested. You want to ask your doctor, ask your practitioner that you'd like a full thyroid panel, which I know you've talked about, but we want more than just a TSH, which is the thyroid stimulating hormone. I want to actually see what both of those little hormones are doing, your free T4 and free T3. That free T3 hardly is ever tested, yet that's the active hormone in all your cells. That's the active one. So why aren't we testing the active one that's going around and doing the heavy lifting? On top of that, you may need to look at the antibodies. The risk for Hashimoto's goes up, which is one of the autoimmune thyroids, especially if it runs in your family. Now is the time. So I'm a huge proponent of checking thyroid at this time. Don't miss it.
Yeah, and I just got a blood test done by a functional doctor, and they didn't test the T3 and the reverse T3. And I go, well, this is not telling the full story. I had to proactively ask for it on my second test.
Yeah.
And then you see the full picture. So, Carrie, what a blessing you are to all of us. And I am so grateful for our discussion today. Where can people find you? And if there's one thing you want to leave everyone with, what is it?
You can find me online. So I'm at drcarriejones.com, and I hang out a lot on Instagram and YouTube. So I'm at Dr. Carrie Jones, both of those places. And the big thing that I want to leave everything with, which you can't really see it in my screen, but it's on my written behind me, but it says healing happens at joy. And I say this because when we think of vibrational levels, whether you're woo-woo or not, but we've got like anger and irritation, and that can happen a lot in perimenopause, where we may be down in those lower levels because it feels like it sucks. We're having all these symptoms, but just remember, it's like you're coming through as the butterfly. You're gonna come out the other end. You're stronger. You're smarter. You're wiser. Maybe you don't need that filter. Maybe you've been a people pleaser your whole life, and this is a good time for you to let that go. And that's joyful. Like, that brings me joy when I see people making this midlife transition and they come out the other end loving who they are. Sure, it's a little rough in the interim, but on the other end, so healing happens at joy. Find the joyful parts as you make this transition. Find the silver lining. Find the good stuff to hold on to of who you're becoming as you move towards your postmenopausal years.
I love that. And through every health crisis, either I've had or my kids have had, I've always said, okay, God, what are you doing with this? I can't wait to see the joy and the answers that we get. And it's just like with what I've gone through just in the last couple of months with my liver enzymes. I'm like, okay, what's going on here? And the answers I'm getting are going to be able to help other people. And it's coming out of joy and gratitude versus stress and anger and the why me victim mentality. So I love that. Well, thank you, Carrie. And thanks everyone else for joining us today. Our discussion does not have to stop here. If you're lost in the supplement world, you have questions about what we talked about today, make sure you join the free group coaching and ask your questions there. And I'm also happy to put together a free supplement protocol for you. Follow me on social media at Accelerated Health Products, and you can listen to this podcast and all the podcasts finding Accelerated Health with Sara Banta on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, and over 100 different platforms. You can use coupon podcast10 to get 10% off your first order, and share the knowledge. Share this podcast with all of the women in your life that are so confused about what they are going through, and maybe some of their husbands, because that might help their marriage. So I'm live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Join me next time to unlock your health potential.